Hey lovelies, it's your girl, Cinda, and as I always say, all that it is not as it seems. That's why it's so important that we choose to be introspective. We choose to pay attention to the stories around us, the stories within us, and challenge those assumptions so we can actually get life that's full and meaningful and purposeful and joyful, because yeah man, the world sucks but we all deserve to be happy. So our story today is titled Will You Love Me Now? And it's just basically a dive into how we are enough. I am enough, you are enough. The love that we've always sought elsewhere has always been within us, and sometimes it's really hard to acknowledge that, especially when it's hard to accept yourself. But that's why the story is interesting. It talks about three siblings that, due to how they were brought up and the values instilled in them about themselves, they all kind of went in different ways, trying to find a way to just be loved. Which, by the way, love is the bare minimum. We are all human. We all deserve respect. We all deserve love. We all deserve compassion. So, let's take a dive into our story. The night sky was stunning, filled with stars that shimmered in melodic intervals. The campfire cast a gentle glow on the three siblings sitting on tree trunks in a circle. Each was lost in their own thought, enjoying the sound of the waterfall behind them. It brought back memories of their childhood, the only times they truly had the chance to be children and play, without expectation, without condemnation. Fluff flipped through her psychology textbook, chewing on her pencil. I can't believe you're still starting right now, Yen said as he stretched and stood. We should be celebrating, drinking, partying. Rehab, remember? Isai spoke. She kept her eyes focused on the fire, still lost in thought from the final conversation she had had with her therapist before leaving the clinic. Ah, yes, my bad, Yen said without sincerity, as he pulled out a pack of cigarettes. Those will kill you, Fleur chimed me, Yen said sarcastically, as he took a drag from his cigarette and blew the smoke towards the sky. It is a beautiful night. Exactly why I suggested camping, so Isai can distress before going back to the city. Isai looked up with a faint smile. Thanks for being here. I know you all had other things to do. Yeah, Yen started to say, then trailed off as Fleur glared at him. Nothing more important than being here for you, since our parents always have better things to do. Hands hung around the space like a heavy blanket, each sibling affected by the statements in their own way. Jens continued, So does your psych course teach you about how not to be a narcissistic parent? He chuckled, continuing the train of conversation despite his siblings' discomfort. They are a narcissist, Fleur sighed. I mean, it would make our childhood easier to understand, but we really just had abusive parents. My therapist spoke about that, Asa chimed in. Her siblings looked at her in surprise. She never shared her thoughts or feelings freely. About how I used drugs to numb the pain of feeling unloved. It was a truth that hung heavily. Ian sat down and looked at his sister, his earlier playfulness now replaced by solemn concern. Flo and Ian stared at her in silence, not wanting to say anything to stop her from continuing. It made me think a lot about our childhood and how Jens, no offense, She looked straight at him, was the golden child, and I could just never measure up. I was never proper enough, too loud and fidgety for mom's fancy dinners, and too dumb and distracted to have conversations with pa's friends. She bit her lip as she looked at her feet, holding back tears. Now it turns out being neurodivergent explains it all. ADHD and depression aren't great for child exploitation. She chuckled despite the tears streaming down her face. Isai sniffed as she wrapped her arms closer around herself. Fleur could feel her heart clench at her sister's words. She instinctively moved towards her. She knelt before her and pulled her into a hug. They sat on the floor and she let Isa cry into her shoulder. Thank you, Isa whispered. I can count the amount of times that we've hugged. Fleur smiled. That's because you hate body contact, and I hate it just as much as you. The sisters giggled, lifting the atmosphere around them. Yan cleared his throat. I get it though. His voice was solemn, less emotive than usual. It was so hard living up to their expectations, just so I could get their approval or even the bare minimum attention. I thought everything came easy to you, Isai said quietly as she sat beside her brother. It did. In the beginning, football was easy because I loved it, and I aced classes because we had great tutors. But every time I came home with a trophy for a win, it could have been better. Why not try tennis instead? Or golf? It's a more prestigious sport and you can join my country club. When I wanted to go to a local school, he laughed and told me I was small-minded. I had to go to a prestigious university abroad, or he would not pay for my education. Is that why you left home after you turned 19? Fleur asked. She had also moved to sit beside her brother. Jens coughed and stood up. He walked around the fire, murmuring to himself. His sisters watched him silently. This was how he processed difficult things before speaking. He turned around and stared at Fleur for a few seconds too long, then looked away. I wish, he said as he pulled out another cigarette and lit it. I left because he found out I was gay and kicked me out. He said I was a disappointment. He had my whole life planned out. Marriage to a competitor's daughter, to form a long-term partnership before I leave the company or something. Like this is in the 21st century and marriage is only for trade. He made my sexuality seem like a hindrance to his business transaction. Isai was crying again, softly, as she watched her brother. She remembered that afternoon. Fleur had had a science fair their mother had taken her to. She heard screaming down the hall, then something being thrown down the stairs. She rushed out of her bedroom to find her father throwing her brother's stuff downstairs. Pa, what are you doing? She asked, worried as her brother stood there frozen with empty eyes. He made no move to stop his father. Jens is no longer your brother, or my son, since he cannot put the family above himself. Their father shouted angrily. Jens? Isai moved towards him. Please say something. You can't leave us, please. Jens remained silent as he followed his father down the stairs. He did not pick anything up. He simply walked to the front door and stood in front of it. I give you one more chance to take my ultimatum. If you walk out that door, we are done. Something snapped in Yan at those words. He turned back to his father, eyes filled with rage. I am better off without you, he spat. He walked past to reach Isai, who was now crying. He pulled her gently into a hug and whispered, I'll text you, before walking straight out the door. I'm so sorry, Jens. We never knew what happened. Pa said you had lost your way, hanging out with the wrong crowd, and he had corrupted you. Fleur said softly, yet she could not meet his eyes. She was the reason their father found out about his sexuality, and now she knew it was all her fault. Yeah, I didn't believe them. I stopped believing anything they said about you years before that. Isai said, her eyes lost in the memory. Yan laughed bitterly. Well, there's more. His ultimatum that he pitched to me like I was a client, not his son, basically was to pretend to be straight and marry for the business sake, because love is obviously for the weak. He said the longer I play being straight, my sexuality will rewrite itself, like it was some disease in me he could over time cure or just ignore when it didn't benefit him. And the worst part is that those stupid words stayed with me. I kept feeling like a disappointment, like a fake, like it was all in my head, like I didn't deserve love or to be myself. Even though I hated him and I know he was full of shit. Ian's voice slowed with emotion. I spent all those years trying to prove him wrong, getting high at rave parties, hoping to find a guy that would like me, anyone I could post about publicly or even show up to gatherings with, to show him he was wrong. Jumping into relationships with the first interest from any man. And we all know, ladies, those never end well. Before Dan, Isai added with a sad smile. Yes, before Dan, but it was a terrible journey here. I gave up on school, decided to get a diploma in a completely different field because I wanted nothing to do with Pa's legacy. I explored every form of gay sex, even when it made me feel like I was objectifying myself, just to feel like I was in charge of my own sexuality, hoping, that somehow it would also earn me love. Love because my fucking pa made me feel like trash. Well, it only made me a party playboy who was lucky enough to get off with treatable STDs. Looking for love in all the wrong places because you never got the love you deserved, Isai said as she nervously played with her hand. I've been taking a class on that subject, and I see that in myself too. She was. Whoa, I thought our resident asexual was safe from this painful circle, Yan said comically, gaining a laugh from Fleur and an eye roll from Isai. But seriously, anyone go on. It's about time we have this family therapy session, Jens continued. Who's next? He chuckled. Isai looked at Fleur, who was still playing with her hand. She could tell her sister was uncomfortable taking the floor, like she always was, constantly finding reasons to remain in the shadow, despite her brilliance. Anyone remember Tom? Isai frowned as she looked at her siblings. Yes, Tom, the perfect boyfriend, right? Honestly, I was skeptical when you told me Mom accepted him. No one was ever good enough, Jens said as he stared at the fire. It all made sense after your birthday. Fleur looked up at her siblings as she remembered her sister's 21st birthday. Her heart clenched at the moment she had lost all her trust in their parents. She, just 2 years younger than her sister, had excitedly helped Isai prepare for the grand 21st birthday party their parents were throwing at their beachfront home in Nice, France. She helped her sister straighten her hair as she glanced wistfully outside of the window. You're supposed to not burn my scab, Isai said, drawing back her sister's attention. Penny for your thoughts? She pouted. I don't know. Something feels off, Fleur said, her mind distant. First, why go through all this effort to throw your party and invite all of partners if this party isn't about his work? They probably will have some business meetings this week. You know Par always takes his work with him, Isai said dismissively. Okay, but why is Olivia here? And her entire family? Fleur was not backing down. Both of you are not exactly friends, despite Mom suddenly forcing you to spend so much time together. Isai thought for a moment. Yeah, I was surprised to see her. It is weird since I did not put her on my guest list, but maybe it's Par's way of making a business connection with her father. But how? He's been trying for years without fail, and nothing has changed except for... She trailed off. Issa sighed. Let me guess. Tom? I told you before that Mom always brought Olivia around because she was so proud. I found the perfect boyfriend. She was showing off. Olivia has been single since her public breakup. Mom wanted to gloat. I don't know, Isa. I think her asking Olivia to join you and Tom on dates is an overkill. Don't you think? Before Isai could answer, their mother walked in. Her face wore her usual expression of stern disappointment, the only one she used on them. Are you both done? The guests will be here soon, and your pa wants us ready to welcome them together. Yes, ma'am, Fleur said. I'm done with Isa's hair, and I will be going to put on my dress now. She walked out without waiting for a response, then finally let out the breath she was holding. The only way she knew how to avoid her mother's wrath was to make herself small and perfect when she needed her to be. As she walked down the corridor, she heard laughter from downstairs through the windows. Looking down, she saw Tom laughing alongside Olivia, surrounded by both their parents. Her stomach sank. She knew something terrible was coming. Isai walked down the stairs dressed perfectly to her mother's expectations, feeling excitement for the party ahead. Her parents had spared no expense, and for the first time, she felt that they had accepted her. After months in the in-clinic for severe depression and marijuana addiction, she had come back with a boyfriend who had changed everything. She met Tom at her mental clinic in Scotland, where he was working as a volunteer over the summer for his thesis before returning to Switzerland to finish his degree in biomedical science and psychology. He was charming, funny, and most surprisingly, not bothered by her panic attacks or withdrawal agitations. He was everything her mother ever called the perfect man, and he was interested in her, something her mother always said she could never achieve. For that reason alone, she did everything he wanted, as long as he wanted her. Reaching the base of the stairs, Isa was surprised to see that the guests were already in the foyer, moving through the open doors to the living space, especially because her mother had told her father was waiting to let the guests in. She took a deep breath, trying to push away her anxiety as she scanned the room for Tom or her parents. Phone pinged, and she looked down. It was a message from Jens. It had been 3 years since he was kicked out by their father, yet he had stayed in contact consistently. Congratulations on your 21st Isai. I'm sure you look amazing today. Let me know when you're back and we can have a real party, not a performance for business partners. Keep your head up, babes. It's your day, not theirs. Love, Jens. She smiled as she walked around the space looking for anyone who was familiar. She remembered a few faces as her father's partners, but they at most nodded in her direction and looked away. No one offered a happy birthday. You still don't think it's weird that no one brought a birthday gift for your birthday party? Flo whispered beside her. Issa startled, then smiled after seeing her sister. Yeah, no one has said a single thing about my birthday, and I can't find Tom or Pa and Mom. Or Olivia and her parents, right? Issa frowned. What are you saying? I saw something after I left your room, and I don't think our parents are throwing this party for you. Flo whispered, afraid to upset her sister, whose emotions were still unsettled after being forced into a clinic. A noise from outside draws Isai's attention. It was Olivia's laugh, loud and careless, coming from the backyard, a part of the house that was off limits to the party. Fleur followed her sister as she used the back door through the chef's kitchen to get to the backyard. The scene in front of them was the first time Fleur realized she hated her parents. It was the last time Isai would ever be in the same room with them again. Olivia was sitting on Tom's thighs, his hands tightly around her waist as they toasted to something alongside their parents. What's happening? Isai managed, her voice low, hands shaking with anxiety. Flo moved towards her sister and held her hand. Their parents turned to face them, their father with a professional perfect smile, and their mother with a gaze of irritation at the interruption. Olivia snuggled closer to Tom, who could not take his eyes off his shoes. Why don't we leave them to handle their family business? Olivia's father says to Tom's mother, who was silently watching the scene. He turns to their father. It was a pleasure doing business with you, Noah. Now we can finally call ourselves partners. This collaboration will change everything regarding our business reaching Switzerland. With a firm handshake, he walked away with his wife and Tom's mother. Tom, what's going on? Isa says louder, her eyes red. Tom ignores her as he follows behind his mother with Olivia in his arms. Keep your voice down. Their mother rolls her eyes. Don't cause a scene. I asked a question. Tell me what is going on. I just concluded the biggest deal of the decade thanks to you, darling, their father says with a sly smile. Finally, I have a permanent partnership with the Dubois. You and your financial costs can finally bring some value. What are you saying, Pa? What did you do to Tom? Why won't he talk to me? Fleur tightened her hand around her sister's. They set it up, she said with an intensity of disgust she had never felt. This party was to bring Tom and Olivia's family together. The dates were to get them to fall for each other. They convinced your boyfriend to leave you for Olivia. Yes, the smart one figures it out, their father says dryly. At least you can expect that you will marry someone who will add asset value. Unlike Yen, he added dismissively. But what about me? I could have married Tom. We were in love. Flo was now holding her sister, who was sobbing. Oh, please, their mother snapped. You are unstable, can barely hold yourself together, and have no etiquette. Olivia is a perfect match for Tom as he takes over his mother's biotech empire. Business-wise and on paper, you didn't stand a chance, darling. At least now, the entire family gains from your fling with Tom before it inevitably ended. How could you do this? Fleur said in disbelief. Your own daughter! For the first time, she was truly seeing her parents. Oh, please. The relationship would have never lasted anyway, their mother said dismissively. You kick out your own son and betray your own daughter? Are you even our parents? Fleur shouted, surprised at her own boldness. Her father frowned at her outburst. Fleur always submitted and stayed out of the way. He moved closer to her and huffed. And you were supposed to be any better? You are the reason everyone knows Jens is gay. What? She said, showing off. What does that have to do with anything? I guess you're not that smart to figure it out. Maybe ask your sister after her panic attack passes. Get her some meds and lock her in her room, their father said as he reached for their mother. They walked back to the house without a glance at their crying daughters. Fleur knelt beside her sister, holding her tight and whispering, Deep breaths, Isai. Come on, in and out. In and out. Come on. Hold for 6 seconds. I still can't believe they did that, Fleur said, her voice laced with hate. Honestly, I never knew who they were till that day, and I can't seem to move past it. There's nothing to move past, Ian scoffed. They are never gonna own up to their shit, and will probably die before they ever apologize. They're still playing the victim, the perfect parents who did their best, and ended up with terrible kids who failed them. But forgiveness is needed to move on. If not for them, then for us. I'm tired of giving so much of my inner peace to maintaining my hatred for them. My therapist helped me realize it was because I was still subconsciously expecting love from them, unwilling to let go of the illusion of the parent we deserved. I said carefully. You can only hate what you love, Fleur added. The opposite of love is indifference, not hate. Jan scoffed. Right. Well, I don't think they deserve my forgiveness, but it would be nice to never think of them again, to not care about their expectations or resentment. It's a journey, Jens, one I just started, and maybe we can go on together as a family, the one we always deserved but were never allowed to have. Isa smiled at him. Yen smiled back. Yeah, maybe. Flora cleared her throat to draw her sibling's attention. Regarding forgiveness, she said, her voice small. She looked at her brother with so much pain in her eyes. I am so sorry, Yen. I didn't know. I didn't know that was why Pat kicked you out. Ian looked at his sister, silent, letting her continue. His chest ached at her words he had waited for so long, but never demanded. I'm so sorry. I found the picture of you and Yordi when I was looking for your calculator in your room. I had thought it was so cute. You had been honest with me and Isa about your feelings for him, and I was so stupid to assume that our parents knew too. Pa had called me into his office to talk about my summer camp, and he noticed the picture in my hand. He had feigned interest, asking who that was, and I stupidly said your boyfriend. Stupidly said you were so cute together. He kept asking questions and I kept answering. I didn't. I'm so sorry. I was so stupid. I can't believe you had no one then because of me. I didn't have no one, Jan says carefully as he moves to touch his sister. I had my sisters who loved and accepted me for me, never once condemning me for being me. He smiled at her softly. Please forgive me, Jan. Please forgive me. She went into his arms and cried on his shoulder. Issa joined in the hug. Of course I forgive you, Ian said into her hair. I already did. A few minutes passed as the three siblings held each other, crying, healing, finally finding connection in a reality that they had once felt so alone in, finally accepting the truth about their childhood and how it had molded the people they became and the paths they had followed. Isai pulled away first, sitting back down as she tried to understand all the emotions she was feeling. Fleur joined her next, followed by Jens, who lit another cigarette. I guess my way of handling our parents' pressure was being small and invincible, never in their way, never with an opinion of my own. I was perfect and obedient when they needed me to be, and non-existent when my presence was not wanted. Somehow, I had realized that their love was conditional. Conditional on my obedience, on my perfect grades, on my perfect figure. Fleur speaks with a faraway look in her eyes. I somehow became to believe that I had to play a certain role to be loved. Welcome to the club, sister. Yen toasts, getting a smile from both of them. A peaceful silence falls over them for a minute before Isai speaks up. Is that what happened with Jim? She asks her sister, who is lost in a memory. Hey, Fleur, still with us? Ian asks teasingly, waving his cigarettes in front of her face. Get that away from me. She laughs, seemingly returning to her buddy. My bad. I still struggle with dissociation as a coping mechanism. And yes, Isai, it all hit a terrible peak with Jim. You met him at school, yeah? Yes. We had been classmates for 3 years without ever speaking. Then all of a sudden, he could not take his eyes off me. Yeah, right around the time that you were both told that either of you could be valedictorian depending on the grades of your final coursework. Very convenient, Isai added with irritation. Yeah, that was my focus as usual. I mean, like, coursework. But it was the first time a guy had ever been interested in me for more than my looks, which I really hate because of Mom. He claimed to love how brilliant I was. He convinced me that being together would challenge us to be the best versions of ourselves. And it felt amazing in the beginning. The mental connection, the witty banter. It kept me awake at night with butterflies. Wait. We're talking about Jim, the valedictorian, right? Jens asked in disgust. He did all this to win? I'm so sorry, Fleur, but these details are brutal. Well, it gets better, because he broke down all of my walls with poetry, gifts, and respect for my individuality. It was too perfect to be true. He never even pushed to meet our parents, which all of my dates brought up as soon as they found out who they were. We moved in together after 2 months. I didn't know, Isai said, and Jens nodded. Because I was ashamed afterwards. I pushed it away and just pretended it never happened. But ignoring it was not the control I thought it was. I was simply piling up trauma I had to eventually work through. It's ironic because we only lived together for 2 weeks. 2 weeks that have affected every aspect of my life since then. Isa and Yan moved closer to their sister. Physical contact, never really shared in their childhood, now a way of empathy and feeling. Yan puts his hand around her shoulder as Isai plays with her hands. Fleur takes a deep breath, then smiles at them, grateful for their support. He became a completely different person after we moved in together, complaining about all the stuff he once loved about me. He was a narcissist and had love bumped me into thinking that I meant everything to him. He started to complain about me being asexual. I tried to explain that I didn't think sex was a defining factor in a relationship, something that he once said was so refreshing in a sex-obsessed culture. But then, all of a sudden, the hugs weren't intimate enough. Allowing him to touch me was the bare minimum requirement, and oral sex was never enough. Even when I begged him that it didn't feel right. Even even when I even when I begged him, he he Flora started to cry. She couldn't speak. Hey, we're here. You're not alone. Not anymore. Never again, Isai said, rubbing her hands. He raped you? Ian asked, his voice a whisper. Yes. He raped me over and over again. He raped me, then drugged me and raped me for the entire week of our finals. I don't remember taking my exams or ever leaving the apartment. I just know one day I woke up and he was gone. Everything he owned was packed. He left a note saying it was fun while he lasted, but now, as valedictorian, he had to be with someone on the same level, not a drug addict who failed out during her final year. Damn, Yan said, anger and disbelief in his eyes. That's why you took an extra year. You said you were sick, Isai added softly. I was sick. My body had to go through detox for a drug I had never even taken myself. My heart was broken. I was ashamed and I couldn't trust anyone. He had spread rumors about me around school and everyone was staring. It was only my psychology professor who believed in me enough to reach out and find out the truth. Even when I pushed her away, she kept coming back till I told her everything. She advocated for me to the school's faculty to take a gap year and return for my finals. She also tried to report the rape to the authorities, but I begged her not to. I knew our parents would never forgive me for the rape. They would make it seem like it was my fault, like I embarrassed them with my trauma. Like they did to you, Isai. All I had was my academic prestige and I couldn't let anyone know I was just weak and I couldn't fight back. Never say that again. You were never weak. You were a victim. He targeted you, then assaulted you. I can't believe you went through all of this by yourself. I am so damn proud of your strength, but so obsessed that you had to deal with this shit, Ian said, running his hands through his hair. All because we didn't get the love we deserved as kids from our parents. All because we were never told we had value in ourselves and needed no one else to feel important. All because we spent our entire lives adapting and changing into anything or anyone that could be loved. Yeah, it's like we never grow up, stuck as those abandoned kids, looking for acceptance in all the wrong places, still asking over and over and over and over, am I enough now? Becoming everything they wanted, yet never truly accepted. Asking over and over and over again, will you love me now? Isai added. Yeah, when all the love we needed was always within ourselves. We were always enough, and we let them, our parents, Tom, Jim, the messed up culture of society tell us otherwise. Not anymore. Not anymore. Not anymore, Flora said passionately with tears in her eyes. Yeah, not anymore, Jens and Isai repeated after her. Not anymore, they said in unison, feeling lighter, feeling closer, feeling freer than ever before. The end. That wasn't an easy one to write or storytell, because I see myself in that. I see how my trauma and things of my past have somehow, over time, made me sick love in all the wrong places. It's like being stuck as the idealistic, innocent child that believed the best in the world, and then just carrying that around in false hope, trying to be anyone that could, lead to you getting the love you felt like you didn't have. But yeah, the point of all of these conversations is that we have to begin to talk about the harmful and the difficult and the uncomfortable stuff that happen that are left unsaid, because that's the only way we can take back control. We can heal, we can grow, we can choose to end the circle or go a different way. I just want to leave you with this. Like, sit back and just think of all the times you have pretended to be someone or have just done something because you just wanted connection. You just wanted to be loved. Could have been something that was harmful to yourself. Could have been something that was harmful to someone else. But I just want you to know that that comes from a good place. It comes from a place of being human. Because we were made for connection and love, to be one organism somehow that heals and grows together, but somehow we're broken right now. But acknowledging that that comes from a good place, it's a good thing, because that makes you realize that maybe it's about time to stop looking outside of yourself for your value, for your love, for your identity, and just take some time to look within and just see the kind of person you want to be, without all the pressures, without all the expectations, without all the burdens that you're subconsciously carrying, and just, have that conversation with yourself. See where it takes you. So, bye for now, my lovelies. Always your girl, Cinder.